There we go. We're live. Hey Adam, how's things with you, mate?
Very good, Ryan. How's your week been?
Mate, it's been busy. I've had a busy couple of weeks, to be fair. How's come on the market? I had a house that came on the market 10 days ago. I've done 40 viewings at this house. I'm done now.
Wow.
2 open houses and we're done. But it's just been crazy busy. What about yourself? How's your business going? All good?
Yeah, it's yeah. With all these rate pools at the moment, it's just applications. It's crazy busy right now. A lot of clients are very motivated right now. Put it that way.
I can imagine. Well, look, we'll wait for a few people to jump on. Thanks everyone who's joining us so far. So we're live on Facebook, we're live on LinkedIn as well as the YouTube page for Avocado Property. So got a couple of things to run through today, a couple of interesting topics. We're going to have a little chat about the mortgage world in general. I think there's a couple of big changes that Adam's going to discuss with us. Ban on ground rents for leasehold properties comes into effect today. So we're going to talk about that and whether that can affect mortgages, etc. Topic of conversation that's hot with everyone at the moment is down valuations. So we've got a couple of bits of advice on if you're buying somewhere at the moment or getting a remortgage and it does get down valued, how you can combat that. And then the last thing we wanted to talk about, which is quite apt at the moment because a lot of properties seem to be are getting multiple offers in some instances. So we want to offer a bit of advice on the best way to position yourself and when discussing with a estate agent your financial position, how to put yourself in the best possible light. That's all good, Adam, with you, is it?
Yeah, it's all good for me.
Excellent. Well, let's dive straight in then. So the wonderful world of mortgages, says no one, but you love mortgages. So tell us everything about what's happening, what's going on in the mortgage world. Just a couple of big things, I think, isn't there?
Yeah, so the big news this month is the Bank of England is dropping its mortgage market affordability test. So basically, in layman's terms, since 2014, they were doing some really aggressive stress testing. So they were doing when they were deciding to lend, irrelevant of your signing multiples, they were stress testing it way above what interest rates were on the basis that interest rates were going to go really high in the future. And as a result, people were not getting their salary multiples if they had, back things like a couple of dependents, a housewife, a couple of car leases. They weren't necessarily getting their salary multiples, depending what their incomes were, with this stress testing. So Bank of England has scrapped it as of August. It's going to be brought in or phased out, and which means basically people should have easier for them to get their full salary multiples. So it should make borrowing money easier.
So basically, people will be judged on affordability with the interest rate as it is, rather than like current lenders saying it's going to be. We predict it might be up here in 5 years' time, so that's what they're judging on. Good. So a fairer way of doing things, then, basically.
It just makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah, absolutely. Especially, and also weird thing is because rates have gone up. That it's not. I think the worry always was, but historically rates last 2014 rates were so low. Of what rates go up, can people still afford their mortgages? But because rates are going up, it's like actually still affordable. Is the test really necessary? Is it just holding people back now?
Absolutely.
It's really, really positive news here.
No, definitely. That sounds good. It's a big change as well. As you said, it's been there for 8 years for one way. It's quite a big jump the other way, effective, isn't it? Just obviously, I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine. People still need to go through the due diligence, but no, it's good news. Good news. So, talk to me about mortgage rates, because every article I ever read, or every buyer I ever speak to at the moment, seems to be talking about the rise in rates, and it just seems like there's no end of stopping. Is that fair representation, or what's your view?
Exactly that. It certainly feels like, when is this madness going to end? Base rate went up this month to 1.25%, so another 0.25% interest rate rise in June from the Bank of England. What's interesting, though, rather than just saying how rates are going up, is our banks are really aggressively increasing rates now, way above the base rate of the Bank of England. So the average 2-year fixed rate is now 3.61%, and the average 5-year fixed rate is now 3.91%. So rates are, and the reason for that is not due to the Bank of England. The excuses But the rationale we've had from the banks is service. They are hiking their rates up because they're overwhelmed with applications. They're trying to make their rates expensive to stop people basically wanting to go with them for their mortgage. But the problem is, say NatWest repriced on Monday, right, we're going up by 0.5%.
Yeah.
The rest of the high street copy them the following week. And then so just a race to the bottom of the rate table.
Or race to the top, as it were.
But I guess the plus side from the banks is they're making a lot. They're going to have record profits this year.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that with everything, isn't it? Like we made a pact. We're not going to talk about the cost of living because we always talk about it in every single meeting. So we won't talk about it today. But it's exactly the same, isn't it? Very briefly, like with fuel prices, like BP record levels of revenue, Shell same, and this is. I think the banks are looking at similar levels, isn't it? The amount of stuff that's going through. I know there's a lack of property selling, but just because there's not that many of them around, let me rephrase that. Everything's selling, but there needs to be more. And I think it's the same with the banks, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So does that, with the interest rates, mortgage rates going up, is that just affecting like new buyers or what, how's it, is it affecting people with remortgages as well? Or where's the market with that, things with remortgages at the moment?
Yeah, so at the moment, remortgages are up. They're according to the FCA, they're the highest level since the pandemic at the moment. Wow. Remortgages, so that and it's just whether you're a homeowner or you're looking to buy your first home, you're going to get hit with interest rate increases. So what I'm finding is people are remortgaging earlier and earlier, up to 6 months before their deal ends. And historically, probably left it last a couple of months before their deal ends. So they're bringing it forward to secure deals as quickly as early as they can before they go up. And as a result, the banks are really buckling with the workload, the volume here of people remortgaging early. It's
probably a similar concept to, let's say, mid-2020, post the first lockdown. We suddenly had this surge of people wanting to move house, needed a bigger house, bigger garden, wanted more space, needed a study. And that's what obviously almost not crippled, but that's why the legal process took so long, because there was so much volume happening in such a short space of time. Similar to what's happening now in the mortgage market, would you say?
Yeah, exactly. It's a huge volume of people doing it at the same time. It's just that the banks don't have the demands, don't have the resources to manage all these applications. So you've got someone like Nationwide. We'll pick on them. They would typically get assess a mortgage in 5 working days. They're taking, last time I checked, about 15 working days to look at documentation. So almost 3 times as long their service. Yeah, because you think if they have any questions about documentation, they could take 2 months to get you a mortgage offer instead of like a couple of weeks.
There we go. Well, best thing to do is make sure you get your applications in as soon as possible, then, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, have all your documents up front, and don't hang around. Get your applications in early. You've got plenty of time.
Indeed. Good. So big things in the mortgage world then. So stress testing is going to become a thing of the past fairly soon. Mortgage rates are still going up, but probably at a more higher rate than just the Bank of England's rates, interest rates. Sorry. And then remortgages are at a massive high in the last 3 years. There's still so much people looking to remortgage and fixing for quite a while, I think, as well, by all accounts. So interesting. We always have these conversations every month. There's so many changes in the mortgage market, and it's why I always say to buyers when I'm speaking to people, and we'll come on to that a bit later, but it's just so important to make sure you're in constant contact with your broker, because the conversation you had with someone on the 30th of May is a completely different conversation to someone you're having a month later on the 30th of June. It's fair to say.
Things can change, affordability can change. If you've got mortgage in place, the rates could have changed. So it's always best just to stay in contact with your mortgage advisor. Just keep them regularly in the loop, whether you're remortgaging or buying. Just check, see whatever you've spoken about previously is still the right thing for you.
Yeah, absolutely. The next topic of conversation I wanted to dive into literally was released, the news finally today. So the official ban on ground rents charged for leases on properties comes into effect today. Now, obviously the ground rents are something to be considered, but a lot of the leasehold properties maybe £250 for the year, some as high as £450, £500, but really don't massively jump up that. So obviously it's still a lot of money saved each year, which is good. But one thing I wanted to dive into with you, Adam, was some properties, and certainly ones I've sold, have had service charges, some close to £200 a month for a service charge. If someone's applying for a mortgage, is that taken into account? Will that affect their affordability? What's your views on that?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that, and also obviously just I'll answer that, and also just run over the ground rent, because that is massive. But they're getting rid of ground rents because they are like service charges. The cost of them would be completely factored into your affordability for a mortgage, so they'll be treated like a credit commitment. Rightly or wrongly, there'll be a monthly expense for your combined ground rent and service charge would go in, and if you've got background debts or the affordability is quite tight, you could get declined for a mortgage if these charges on affordability, if these charges are too big.
Mm-hmm.
But the ground rent itself, that's great. That's going, because we were having issues with ground rent where some new build developers were aggressively increasing the ground rent every couple of years, way above RPI, and a lot of banks actually were rejecting some of the ground rents.
I had a flat I was selling about a year ago, actually, and it's exactly that. I think it had 25 years of the lease already expired. It was down to 100 years. And at that point, the ground rent jumped from, I think, 250 to 500. And then in another 25 years, it would jump to 1,000, which is obviously ridiculous. But the lender turned around and said they needed more information, or they needed a deed of variation to change the lease because it was that much of an issue, so now it's gone. Moving forward is a big thing, I think.
Oh, I've got one of them at the moment. This is out of interest. Did the freeholder do the deed of variation for you?
I must admit, I switched to avocado property before I found out. So I don't know. But yeah, I imagine it was. I remember dealing with it just as I was finishing up, and it was at loggerheads. Buyer wasn't budging, seller wasn't budging. So who knows? But it's an interesting point, though, isn't it? So we can talk about that off air, and we can see if I can help you with that one. So yeah, interesting point. Down valuations, Adam. Obviously, I hate them as much as you do, because it means a lot more work for us, and sometimes I don't always agree with them. But I think it's good to offer people advice. There was an article that came out fairly recently where it stated, I think it was 12% of all mortgage applications in April 2022, where the latest data came from, 12% resulted in a down valuation. That's more than 1 in 10 sales. So it is quite important people deal with it, and I know how to deal with it. So my advice on the first instance, I've got a couple of things I do, but obviously for you, if you can't get a new price, which we'll come on to, or you can't challenge it, if people just apply for a new mortgage, is that an acceptable way of getting around it?
So you've got, in terms of, if you're not renegotiating the price or appealing the decision, you've basically got two choices. Either it's try your luck with another lender, whether that's, try the whole of the high street until you get it approved. The issue you have with that is a lot of these surveyors that get selected for the banks to go and value property, they don't just work for one bank. They work
panels, aren't they?
They're on a panel for a lot.
So there's a chance you could get the same surveyor.
Absolutely. I won't mention any names, but I have had estate agents in the past that have got a down value by one chap, say from Connells, and then we've gone with another bank, and then they've used Connells again. The same chap.
One guy turns up. Yeah.
We go around. He's like, no, sorry, mate. We need another surveyor, actually.
But there's no harm in maybe trying a second application. I appreciate, obviously, you probably have to go through credit checks again, don't you? But you can't do it 3 or 4 times because it's going to massively dent into that credit score, I assume. But a second application, is that fair? Or is that?
If I look at, normally what would happen is I'll speak to the agent. If they said that, Adam, the surveyor's got this very wrong, the comparables here, there is data here that this is fair, this is very priced, this is not overpriced, I would absolutely try a second application with another lender. I do this all the time. I get down valuations all the time. And obviously, don't want to jinx anything, but second time round, I've never had an issue. Always get it. It's normally a second attempt, and you'll get it through. Can't guarantee that.
I think when down valuations happen, from my view as an estate agent, obviously my first instance is to try and obviously I want to get the best price for the client. That's always our goal. But at the end of the day, I want the buyer to be happy as well. So I think the first things first is we always ask if you can bridge the gap, i.e., can you borrow? If it's a £10,000 down valuation, at the end of the day, the property is worth what it's worth. And the cruel reality at the moment is if a house does get down valued, if we stick it back on the market, we'll probably get more money anyway. So I always say to the buyer, look, is there a chance you can bridge that gap? Even if it's not the full amount, maybe we can discuss with the seller about a renegotiation. But ultimately in this marketplace for a buyer, it's a difficult situation because if you get down valued, that chances are someone else will buy it and there might be a cash buyer or someone with a larger deposit that's not going to have the same issues. So most sellers would always follow that route, I would say, at this stage. So I think from a buyer's view, if you do get a down valuation, you need to have detailed conversations with both your estate agent who's acting for the sale and also your broker. And more importantly, the estate agent and the broker need to have a sensible conversation and work together, don't they? That's probably the easiest way, which is why I love dealing with you, Adam. Obviously, when we work together, fortunately, we haven't had one for a little while, which is great, a down valuation. But we work together so well. It's important, which is why it's good to make sure you've got a relationship with your broker. It means so much when these deals do happen.
Absolutely, because the estate agent will have a good gut feeling if the down valuation is right or wrong, because they know the market, they know what house is selling for.
Absolutely.
They know if it's too much money or it's not.
Yeah. So in summary for down valuations then, if you're unfortunate enough to be one of those 1 in 10 people at the moment where it is happening for, speak to your broker, speak to your agent, see if you can borrow some more money elsewhere, see if you can get the price renegotiated. If not, maybe challenge the valuation if it is genuinely a challenge is there, and your estate agent will know that. And then the last option is to replace the lender and try again. Risks with all of them, but best thing is just reach out to people you're dealing with and get the advice from them, I would say.
Absolutely.
So, talking on the topic of advice, our last discussion topic that we wanted to speak about was advice to buyers when they are making offers and how to position themselves with their financial chat with the estate agent in the best position to make sure their offer is strongly considered. So I talk about it openly just this morning. So I did a block viewing yesterday on a house local to me that was on the market. This morning I've got 5 offers on the property, and I had very different conversations with all 5 people, and everyone knew what they were talking about. They had their agreement of principle, which is great. They had their broker's details, which is fantastic as well. And we discussed that obviously prior to viewing. But the point I wanted to make is I personally think agreement of principles are almost irrelevant. I genuinely believe that and the reason why I think that is because ARPs are only based on how good the data entry is that you put in at the front. So if you've not taken into account credit card debts or car finance or whatever, like all of these things wouldn't be calculated. So my view is I want people to speak to the best broker I know and get that confirmation. So for you, Adam, when people are speaking, if I speak to a buyer and I put them in touch with you, I want to know that they're in the best position. How would you guarantee that? I mean, what's the process? How do you do things?
Yeah, I would. If a client says to me they've got an AIP, I almost assume that's great, but I'm going to assume I'm just going to do it from scratch, okay, and do my own AIP because I don't know whoever you've done an AIP yourself. You could just go on the Barclays website, type in a few details, get your income wrong, forget to put your credit cards in. The biggest mistake, loads of clients don't understand what a mortgage lender is looking for. They won't realise that, like you said earlier, about a service charge, need to factor that in as a commitment. They probably won't realise their student loan will be treated as a debt. Some people don't even think a car lease or a car finance should be treated as a loan. So I've had so many examples of people that have done their own AIPs but are just basically incorrect because they've ignored basic expenses on them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would always, in terms of my process, I would go for a full.
So it can make a massive difference, can't it? With if you do ignore those bits and bobs, that can be the difference between getting a mortgage and not getting a mortgage.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
You're talking tens of thousands of pounds to knock off your affordability. So I would, when I get a client, I'll go through their full fact find. I'll find out, how much looking to borrow, how long they want it for, does it fit within their retirement age from their current age, what is their income, their gross annual income, and I go through a budget planner where I look at what's the household cost going to be and what debts have they got, and then I would then evidence that with actually getting income documentation in.
Yeah.
Because some people, I'm amazed how few people actually know what they earn. They say, oh, Adam, it's about 20 grand or whatever. Get their payslip in, it's like 80. People round up or round down. It's amazing. People only look at what comes into their bank account. They don't know the gross a lot of the time.
Yeah. No, and
so many
mistakes. Why would you check unless you're applying for a mortgage? Why would you check that? Because it's just tax, isn't it? At the end of the day. Yeah. One thing I find interesting, and speaking to a lot of, mentioned that property of 5 offers. I've had so many viewings of that house, and I've spoke to a lot of buyers, and they were mentioning a lot of the time where estate agents are basically saying, you can't offer on this property unless you speak to our broker, which is obviously completely wrong and illegal. My view is, and it's a catchphrase that I've used for many, many years, and truly believe when there's money involved, you can never get enough advice. So I think it's a way of dealing with it. If you've got an agreement of principle and you've got a relationship with your broker, that's fine. There's no problem at all. But just getting a second opinion and just double checking, for us as estate agents, when I'm speaking to sellers and saying, I've got 5 offers on the house, I've got 3 buyers that they've sent me their agreement of principle, but I haven't spoken to their broker, and I've got 2 buyers that have spoken to my recommended broker, Adam, he's verified their position, they are good to go. That's a very different conversation, and it does help putting yourself in the best light. So my view is, if an estate agent offers an option to speak to their broker, why wouldn't you take it? Like, if you've got that good a relationship with your financial advisor, it doesn't matter. You still go back to them, but you just go back on with even more information, knowing you're getting an even better deal. So I think it's a win-win for everyone, in my opinion.
In theory, like if you went to sell your house, you'd probably have more than one estate agent around to give you a quote. If you were trying to get an extension on your house, you'd probably get more than one builder around to give you a quote. So in theory, based on that logic, if you're going to get a mortgage, you'd probably get more than one quote off of one mortgage broker. But everyone's different. But it's certainly not going to do any harm, is it?
Yeah, certainly not. Certainly not. Hi, Ian. Thanks for that. Coming to the end of our conversation, but we've had a really good chat, I think, so far. So, just to recap for everyone who's catching up or watching it a bit later on, just to know what's going on. So we've talked about the mortgage world updates. We've talked about what's going on in the current situation with stress testing and mortgage rates, which is quite an interesting one. That was about 2 or 3 minutes into the conversation. We've talked about the change in ground rent charges and happening as of today, but service charges and other additional costs, does that affect a mortgageability? But I think the big topic that I take from this is those down valuations and advice on how to deal with things. It's important, and just reaching out for more information. But that's kind of what we talk about a lot, isn't it? Just making sure you get the right information from people, and just use the professionals around you. Estate agents are there to help everyone. Most of them, we certainly are. Use them for information. We've all got multiple years of experience. It's so important, and it's the same for you, Adam. Your brokerage, there's so much information you have. It's so important they speak to you, isn't it? What's your highlight of the conversation? What's been your takeaway from it for everyone?
Weirdly, it's been the ground rent news that you broke to me about it being banned. That's really given me made my day, because I absolutely hate the ground rent is becoming really, really tricky thing to place, as we discussed earlier. So it's made my day, but that's going as it needs to happen.
I totally agree. Every new lease that's set now is not going to have it, which is great. So it's a big change, I think. Same with the stress testing. That was my biggest takeaway. Getting rid of the stress testing. That's a big change after 8 years. I think it's good. I think it's good for the market and good for the mortgage world.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Excellent.
It's easier to get mortgages.
Right. Well, we said we will try and keep this to 25 minutes. That is exactly 25 minutes now. So I think that's perfect timing to end, isn't it? But as always, quick chat away from business. How's life? How's wife and kids? All good? Future kid on the way?
Yeah, it's all going well. We found out we were having 20 weeks ago, having a girl. So we've been arguing over names.
Yeah.
We finally settled on Daphne as a first name. Can't agree on a middle name yet.
Fine. Okay. So, I noticed when we were setting up in the back corner of your room, I think I saw was there a rocking chair or something in the back corner of the room behind you?
It's going to be the nursery, so it's getting there. You can see.
Fine. That's it. There you go. So you're going to lose your office, are you?
Well, this is basically I'm going to find somewhere else. Be out in the chair.
Yeah, absolutely. Fair enough. Well, I'm glad to hear it's all going well. So nice one. Well, look, thanks everyone who's watched the full 26 minutes. As I always say, if you want to comment afterwards, please do reach out to us. We'll still check the comments. When we re-upload this, I'll put all the links to get in touch with Adam if you need to speak to him. Adam, best way for you, obviously mobile number, email address, or through the Facebook page. Is that right? Or
absolutely.
Awesome. So I'll get all your contact details there. So if anyone wants any free advice, Adam's the man to help. And I think he knows what he's doing. He's a pretty good guy at it. So, but as always, thanks everyone for watching. And we'll see you again at some point next month. See you soon.